Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, welcome. I hope you'll consider sticking around by hitting that subscribe button. And if you're returning, thanks so much for coming back. I appreciate your support. For this video, I am sharing some easy spring and Easter crafts with you. I'm using either Dollar Tree items or thrifted items. For this first project here, I'm showing this nest that I picked up at a thrift store some time ago. This originally came based on the packaging from like Marshall's or TJ Maxx, one of those places. Super cute. It still had its original packaging. I also am using this leftover piece of braided like woven material, as well as that thrifted looking twig wreath and an assortment of Dollar Tree's greenery picks. So for this first step here, I'm just trying to size out if this nest will fit nice and snug into this wreath here, which it does, as you can tell. So I'm essentially going to layer those pieces just to make the nest look more substantial and also give it some height and elevating it. First thing I did here was just cut off the greenery picks from its stem, and I'm just going to insert those into the twig or grapevine wreath, just adding them in random areas here and fanning them out so that they are facing all in the same direction. I didn't use any hot glue for this step. I just simply inserted the picks into the pieces of the twigs, and that was a super easy thing to do, since there's a lot of spaces that you can literally just push any flowers and stuff into. So that's basically what I did here. So I'm just going to cut up one, I think it was just one full pick that I used. Could have been two, I can't remember, but I just cut those down to size and then just inserted them again in between all of the twigs and the vine, the grapevine basically. And it's starting to look more like a wreath. Okay, so this is essentially a wreath base, made of this grapevine twig material. And I'm just going to add these greenery stems just to make it look more spring looking and add a little bit of whimsy and more decorative style to it. So as I mentioned, this is going to allow the nest to be elevated or to make it look more substantial and actually allow for it to sit straight. The nest, it's more of like a concave, so it's like kind of pointy in the middle and then like it just, fans out on the sides. So when you sit it down, yes, it can sit pretty well on its own. However, just to make everything look more balanced, I did add it to this grapevine wreath with those stems that I added, and already liking the look of this. Again, it's just making it look like a bigger piece, and you can definitely stop right here if you just wanted to create like more substantial nest look. But I'm going to take it up to the next step. I took this piece of like woven material that I had in my craft stash. This came off of like another decorative item that I had, and I didn't want it to go to waste. So I just took it off of an old existing decorative Christmas tree, decor that I had that was falling apart. And I saved that for a future project. And the future project is now. So what I did was I added some antique Waverly wax to it because I did want to give it more of a darker look just so that it sort of matches up with the base of that the nest. So the nest and that grapevine wreath has a darker tone to it, and this is more of an unfinished light like wood tone. So I did want to darken that up just to make everything more cohesive. So this was a really simple step here, just watering down the Waverly wax just a tad, although the Waverly wax, the antique wax is already pretty watery consistency. So it didn't have to do too much with the water because I actually, when I was adding the water, it was watering it down a little too much to where you really couldn't see the darkness showing through. So I eventually skipped over, adding some water and just stuck with, just adding the Waverly antique wax. And this is the look that I ended up with. I just finished it off by drying it up with my heat tool. So once that step was done here, if you haven't already guessed, I'm going to make this into some type of like an Easter basket. I wanted to make this nest into like a basket of sorts. I thought this would be a perfect nest to do this project with because it does have some substance to it. It's hefty and, you know, bigger in size, and with the size of that woven piece there that I'm going to be using as my handle, I think it just sort of coordinates really well together. So I went ahead and added some hot glue to the base of my nest, and then proceeded to attach that to the wreath there. But as you can tell, it was super easy to pick up because I don't think it made good contact. So that was fine because I did have to attach the handles. I went back and forth deciding if I wanted to make my handles long enough so that they touched the wreath there at the bottom, just so that everything can attach together and, you know, join together. So that's basically what I did here. I'm just hot gluing down the handles, is what I'm calling it, to the sides of this nest. And then that handle will essentially also act as another way or means of gluing that handle down to the base, which is that wreath. So I'm just gonna go ahead and fluff up my picks here just to make sure everything is in the position that it should be. After everything was attached, I went ahead and grabbed my seam binding in this really pretty sage or mint green color. This is by the Martha Stewart brand that I've had for many years. And I'm just making a simple shoestring style bow and just angling the tails. I'm just going to add that to the top of my handle just as a decorative element, just to sort of finish off the look. I didn't want to go too fancy or frilly or go, you know, too crazy with embellishing this, because I did want to keep it pretty simple. The last bit of touch I did add was some Excelsior grass or moss to the bottom portion, because I felt like it needed something down there just to tie everything together, and also to conceal that gap in between the wreath base and the nest. So this is a great tip or trick when you're trying to conceal like a space or a seam in between two items that you join together. It's just add something in between, whether it be ribbon, whether it be rope. In this case, it's moss, you know, Excelsior grass or moss. And that's just a great way to just sort of tie everything together and make it look like one singular piece. So after I added all of that Excelsior grass, which I do say so myself, really, you know, adds more texture and color variation to this and completes this look. I think everything came out super adorable, and I hope you guys like this really simple project. I mean, literally minutes to just join a few items together to create this look. I love how it came out, and I hope you guys like it too. Moving on to DIY number 2, I'm taking more thrifted items like those little mini wreaths right there. I'm also taking some Dollar Tree items here. These are some unfinished carrot wood decor pieces that they have out right now for Easter, as well as that peat pot that they have in their garden section. I am taking the color orange as well as some moss green and this dark Java chalk paint. It's by the Home Decor, I think, folk art brand. And I didn't have any like chalk paint in the orange color, so I did have to use some acrylic paint. This is just some basic orange color. I think it's like a pumpkin orange. And it was a little too bright for my taste, so I did have to darken it up a bit using some of that Java chalk paint right there. And it created this more darker and rustic looking orange. So I went ahead and painted up all of my orange carrot wood pieces there. And then I took the moss green color by Waverly, just painted the leafy parts of the carrots. And this pack here came in a pack of 10. I was going to be creating 2 DIYs with this pack here, but I wanted to make the carrots a little bit more thicker. So what I ended up doing was just painting up 6 carrots, and I'm going to be stacking 3 carrots to create one more substantial, like thicker piece. So really, in actuality, if you're combining and gluing all your pieces or three pieces together, technically you wouldn't have to paint the side that you're gluing or attaching to the other piece, but I just went ahead and did it anyways. So like I said, I'm gonna just go ahead and attach three of those carrots to combine and make one thicker piece. But before moving on to that step, I took my mineral chalk paint here and just took a sponge dauber and just sponged that color onto this peat pot here. You could just use a regular old paintbrush. It doesn't really matter. I guess at this point here, I was just like, not really sure what type of look I was going for, but I just decided to do the sponge technique here, not giving it a full coverage, just still allowing for that brown color to show through. And, you can definitely keep these this pots here, the original color that they are, but, it's personal preference. It might look a little too much like cardboard if you don't paint it, but, again, that's your choice of what color you want it to be. So you could paint it up a different color if you want it to be more like a brighter color, a different neutral color. That's totally up to you. So the next thing I'm doing here is taking this DIY decrepit dust. This is the powder form, sort of like a dark aging powder. And I love to use this product just to age up anything or distress anything, make anything that I'm doing look more old. And I'm just taking my dry brush. It's a stiff dry brush. This is usually the type of brush I use when I'm applying this powder. I feel like it does work really well. And I'm just going to apply those to mostly corners, the rim of the pot, and then just to random areas, just to, again, give it more of an old rustic look, like it's been in the garden. So you can totally omit this part here if this is not your style, but personally I favor this look here, which is why I do it often in a lot of my projects. Here I'm just showing you the difference between the one without it and the one with it. So I'm just going to go ahead and just speed up through this step here and just add more of this decrepit dust to my second pea pot. So essentially I'm going to be making two of the same decor. For some reason, when it comes to these little projects or, topiaries and things of that sort, I do like to make them in pairs. I guess in my mind, I just think that, it would be nice to decorate it as a pair. But that's why I'm going to go ahead and show you what I do and then kind of rush and speed through the second one that I do. So in order to weigh down the peat pots, because these are like made of paper or cardboard, they're really flimsy. I wanted to add some weight to it, and I could have opted to put some beans in there, dry beans, possibly some rocks or stones, but honestly, I could not find my stones that I have from Dollar Tree. So I opted to just use some old rice, and what I did was just added them to a sandwich bag and then knotted that, just making sure not to overstuff those bags. It just had to fit nice and snug into the peat pots, enough to just weigh down the pots, because once I start to add all of the elements, I don't want this to be like topsy-turvy. So I wanted to make sure that everything stood correctly and had good balance. Also, since I'm going to be adding the carrots into this, it also will allow for the carrots to have a means of sticking upright. I went ahead and added some hot glue to the rim of the peat pot and then attached those grapevine wreaths to the top. And this is just going to create more of a structured look, as well as add more texture to this and just really give it like that garden feel, in my opinion, because once I add the carrots to it, it's just going to look and feel like it has like more of that garden, rustic, nature look, I guess. So this is the step here where I start to attach all of my carrot pieces together. Well, at least three of them. I did three. I could have probably did five if I really wanted this to be really thick, because again, this pack does come with 10. So if you wanted to make a set of two, you can basically attach 5 pieces to each of your carrots and then be done with it. But I just opted for 3. I thought that was sufficient. Here I'm taking some scrap pieces of floral moss, not floral moss, floral foam, and I'm just taking the scrap pieces, just big enough that will fit to allow for the carrots to stand upright. Right here, I'm just sticking them in to those spaces, to the front and the back part of this carrot, just making sure that my carrot is standing upright. And I'm going to go ahead and cover up all of that floral foam using some good old trusty moss. This is a pack of moss from Dollar Tree. This particular one is more of a variety of different mosses. They usually have this out sometime during fall, Christmas, but I've had mine in my stash for quite some time. So this is what I chose to use. Spanish moss would also work nicely in this project, but honestly, I'm out of Spanish moss. I really need to go and grab some. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep adding moss to cover up all of that floral foam, and also just to fill in any spaces. You know, we don't want any spaces showing. I want this to look like everything's nice and covered. And here I'm just adding more of the lighter colored moss that's included in this pack here, as you can see. So the more variety of mosses you have, I think the more interesting your project looks. But again, personal preference, you can definitely stick with one style of moss if that's more of your style. But I'm just going to keep adding to this until I'm completely happy with the overall look. You can add less, you can add more. This is your project, do what you please. But for me, I just felt like I needed to make everything look equal and balanced. So I did try to add as much to, you know, every angle, every sides, even the bottoms and everything. So again, this is one of those really easy and affordable DIYs that you can do literally in minutes. And this is so cute and tiny that you can add this to like a tier tray. If you have one of those tier trays that have more of like space in between each level, because it is a little bit taller, but you know, it's such a cute little DIY in my opinion. And I hope you guys are enjoying this video so far. And then I went ahead and added some of this Excelsior grass or moss to the bottom portion of the little wreath there. And then just went ahead and trimmed off any of the excess, anything that was out of control, kind of going in different directions. I wanted to just trim it down just to make everything look more clean and neat. And I would say that that was pretty much it for this project. Now, you can go as far as adding maybe a bow, a ribbon. You can add like a stamped image to the peat pot maybe. You can even add a word, any spring-inspired words, or Easter-inspired words. You know, use those little clickable stamps that I always use on my videos. If you have one of those, you can easily add a stamped word to this. That would be an option, and I actually thought about doing that, but honestly, I just decided, you know, I'm just going to keep it simple and with no words or anything. So, you know, there's so many options of embellishing this. You can also use a rub-on transfer or even a sticker. Sky's the limit. I mean, there's so much flexibility with, you know, how you can personalize this and make it look more customized to your own, you know, to your own taste. So this is the second one here, the same exact project I'm doing as the last one. So I'm just going to go ahead and speed through this step here, this particular one here, because you've already seen me do it the first time. And like I mentioned, I just went ahead and just made a set of two. And so far, you know, I have this decorated on my tier tray, and I think it's adorable. And I know there are holes right there where the leaves are on the carrots. So if that bothers you, just try using spackling and then cover it up. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. Let's move on to DIY number 3. So for this next project here, I'm using more Dollar Tree items. This is an ornament that is from their Christmas season. I kid you not when I say that I've had this for many years. You know, I picked these up a few years back because I really like them. I think they're really versatile and they're really cute, you know, especially if you want to make cute customized like snow globe type things for Christmas ornaments. I've also even used them before for giving gifts, like giving a money gift. So this time around, I'm going to go ahead and use them as a mini cloche. I'm showing you all the things that I use for this project. I'm taking some of Dollar Tree's florals, as well as another one of these peat pots here from their garden section. And then the little crystal knob that I showed you, that's actually from another discount store, like another dollar store type place. But if you have something similar, like maybe you have on hand, sometimes, Dollar Tree carries those, but theirs are a little bit more bigger and heavier. Use what you have. You can even use like a large bead as a handle, because that knob is essentially what I'm going to be using as the handle of my cloche. I'm going to paint up these peat pots using this really pretty moss green color by Waverly. And much like this last project, I'm going to use some rice to weigh down the peat pot, because again, these are going to be a cloche, and with the things I'm going to be adding to the top, I didn't want this to be unbalanced and for it to topple over or anything like that. So again, you can use dried beans, you can use rocks, stones, anything you have that's small enough to fit into your peat pots. But I opted to use dry rice and add them to a baggie and just insert them into the space. I'm going to be making 2 cloches for this next segment of my video. So they're just going to differ slightly. So I'm going to show you the first one. But I went ahead and painted up both of those peat pots ahead of time, as well as added my weight, which were the rice bags. So for this first cloche here, I'm taking these cute carrot decor here. These ones are from the Dollar Tree. They're more of the stiffer carrots. They're like the bottle brush carrots. They do have a wooden stand at the bottom that helps to keep them stay up, right? I'm taking 3 in varying sizes and just hot gluing those down to the lid of this ornament slash cloche. I'll call this a cloche because this is what I'm creating. So that was perfect to have that little wooden piece that allowed me to glue that directly onto the lid. I added some of this pretty green reindeer moss, and then just twisted that back onto the cap of the cloche. So that cloche there fit really nicely, or that ornament fit really nice and snug into that peat pot. It was like a perfect size. But I did want to marry the items together, but without actually making them permanent, because what if I wanted to unscrew it and maybe use this for something different, maybe use it for a different season? I came up with the idea of just using some ribbon. This is the farmhouse ribbon that Dollar Tree carries, really pretty, very neutral, and I just love having this around because it's really nice, and it just goes with a lot of things. So I'm just going to hot glue that to the rim of my peat pot, and there you have it. You're able to unscrew the lid from the cloche, and then if I wanted to, I can always change up the little decorations inside. So we're going to repeat those same exact steps to the second cloche that I'll be making. This time around, I wanted to make this more like nature inspired, so I took a bunch of greenery stems and picks from the Dollar Tree, just cut them off from the original bouquet, and then I just chose the ones that I wanted to use for this project. Now this particular bouquet here is from Dollar Tree, and it's pretty recent, so I'm sure you can find this now if you were interested in this look here. It had like a variety of different stems, or some ferns in there. There's some random leaves and some white flowers. So those are the ones that I decided to choose, just looking very neutral. But this would be really nice too if you wanted to use lavender picks or lilacs or something. But you definitely have to stick with something that's more like smaller and something that you can bend and twist easily. So after I did that, I decided, I want to create some type of nest. Now, this isn't perfect by any means, but, I was winging it at this point. I took some of this like dry grass. I think this is from Easter grass many years back. And I just took some in my hands and then rolled it up like in a ball, and then started to create like the indent like in the middle, just to replicate the look of like a nest. Again, I was winging it at this point. There's really no rhyme or reason, but if you have a better way of creating a nest, do it your way. Whatever, whatever suits your fancy, go for it. But you can also use air dry clay too, you know, if you really wanted to go that extra step. But I was just trying to keep everything looking like very natural, so that's why I opted to use that grass. I'm also using these wooden eggs here. I had a couple choices to choose from. One were the larger wooden eggs, and then I had these mini ones. These were thrifted some time ago. I decided to use a mini because they would just fit a lot better in this little tiny cloche. I took my stiff brush and some of this Java chalk paint and then just started to flick some of this paint all over those eggs just to create a speckled look. Now, again, you can do that method in any way that you know how, whatever works for you. But that worked pretty well for me. And then I just added some reindeer moss to my existing nest here, just to add some variation and some color. And then I hot glued my little mini eggs to the inside of my nest. So far, this is how it's looking, that little tiny nest. And I'm just going to go ahead and add that to this little cloche here. And I guess in a way, this kind of looks more like a terrarium, you know, a terrarium where you put like flowers, or not flowers, like more so like plants or planty type items and nature type items into like a glass jar or something like that, you know. So it's giving me terrarium vibes, but on a very small scale. But anyways, I'm still consider this a cloche, and I'm just going to use more of these different colored like picks from Dollar Tree. I was just trying to add a little more variation in the green. I took these lighter colored green colored leaves and stuff, and then I decided to just add a few of those sprigs here and there just to break up all the monotony and everything. But again, I could have gone totally in a different direction and added like brighter flowers here, but I just wanted to keep it more neutral and more like just garden, like, you know, the normal green, spring green look, if you will. So I hot glued my knob to the top where that hole is of the that's typically where the little ornament hook goes. It's that little metal part. But I added that little crystal knob that I showed you in the beginning. That's going to be the handle of this cloche. And then added that same farmhouse ribbon to the rim of my peat pot. I wanted to make sure that I didn't get any hot glue on the actual plastic because that would defeat the purpose. I wanted to just cover the seams, but here I'm showing you that I can easily open and close this with no problem, and I can totally change out the inside as needed. So this is how these two cloches came out. I think they are super adorable, super tiny and sweet, and you can definitely add anything to your own cloche. This is just an idea, but if you wanted to make yours different, maybe add some fairy lights, go for it. I think it would be adorable. Moving on to DIY number 4, I am taking more Dollar Tree items. This is a beaded wreath that they carry pretty consistently. I'm also taking one of these banners here. It's from their Spring Fling line. I recently showed that on my last Dollar Tree haul. Super cute. I just came across it. It wasn't even like in their normal spring area, like spring aisle or Easter aisle. I just found it in like a whole different section of Dollar Tree, and I thought it was like so adorable. It has like a puffiness to it, you know, and they're just shaped super cute, and I automatically thought about doing a DIY with it. Now they're meant to be a banner, so they're meant to just be probably decoration, either for a party or just for spring in general. But I knew that I can do something different with those tulips because, you know, why not? Like, you know, those tulips, you could even maybe hot glue or sew onto like pillows, to hand towels, and totally make customized spring, you know, type of decor using those tulips. I mean, there's just so many uses that you can come up with. But this time I wanted to just use it on this beaded wreath here. I decided to make a wreath using those tulips, and this was easy. I mean, like less than 5 minutes, I had this really pretty spring wreath, very colorful, and No rhyme or reason. I mean, just like anyone can do this, just hot glue those tulips down. Make sure that you hot glue both the tulip, the flower part, and the leaf part, making sure that it has good contact to the wooden beads. And then just, lay them out in this fashion where they're all facing the same direction, going, following the same direction, and then, just making sure everything is spaced out evenly. I mean, this can't get any easier, right? This is a super beginner friendly project that anyone can do. I then took some of my ribbons that I had on hand and I started to cut strips of ribbons. I wanted some type of bow or something, but I didn't want a bow. But before moving on to that step, these little pom-poms came attached on that garland as well. So I didn't want to waste those. I wanted to make good use of those as well. And I thought, let me just go ahead and hot glue those down in random areas just to add as an accent to this wreath. Why not, right? Add more color, more fun and whimsy to this wreath. So I did just that. And then, like I said, I wanted to add some type of like crowning, look like a bow or something, but I knew I didn't want to add like an actual bow. So I did cut up some pieces of ribbon basically that I had on hand, just colors that I thought would lend well to Easter and spring. And these are the ones I came up with. I have yellow, some blue gingham, some yellow with some design on it. And I just started to layer those in an X fashion, just like you see me doing here. And then I use a piece of jute twine and then just knotted everything together. And then with that same jute twine, I used that to hang to the top part of my wreath. And that was going to essentially be my bow. And as a last touch, I did cut the angles, cut the edges at an angle just to make everything look nicer and cleaner and everything. And then that was pretty much it. This one came out so adorable. I will show you in the reveal how I layered it with another wreath, and that's also a great use for this type of project. So if you don't want to use something this small like as a wreath, you can always layer it with another bigger piece, just like I'm showing you here in this clip. So just take an existing wreath that you may have, whether it be something like with greenery or flowers like this, and just add it to that wreath, and voila, you have a more substantial looking, beautiful wreath. So moving on to our final DIY of this video, I'm using this Dollar Tree bunny butt cutout. They carry this every year. It's by the Crafter Square. I'm also using a 12 by 12 stretch canvas. I also have a couple packs of these decorative napkins that I'm showing you that I'm going to go ahead and use for this project here. Now, one of them is from the Dollar Tree, the one with the large flowers, the large floral print, and then the one with the blue background and bunnies is from TJ Maxx. So if you don't have napkins on hand, they're very easy to find. If Dollar Tree carries a lot of cute napkins seasonally, but if you go to like stores like TJ Maxx and Marshalls, they always carry decorative napkins for every season and holiday, and they have a lot of cute selections. I typically like to grab mine on clearance. So at the end of the season, check out those stores and you'll be surprised what you can find. And that's a great way to sort of start your collection. So first thing I'm doing here is taking some Snow White chalk paint by Waverly. I'm just going to paint up the background of this stretched canvas. Again, one of the rules of using napkins to decoupage with is to always start with a brighter background or use white if possible, because it will bring out the image a lot nicer and more clear as opposed to using the original background color of something, because then your print sometimes, your design sometimes fades without having like a bright background. So here I'm just showing the napkins all laid out. You want to make sure to separate the plies. So depending on how many plies your napkins have, you want to get it down to the very single ply and just use a very top layer. I'm tearing all of my napkins into fourths because I felt like doing more of a layered effect would be better and look more natural, as opposed to trying to get everything even and, you know, all of the seams meeting and whatnot. I think that's more time consuming. But you'll see here I did a little mistake that I am going to point out here in this video. But again, you live and learn. Sometimes when you're doing these projects, you're going, and you don't really have a sense of, you know, in that moment, if it's going to work or not. So it's a lot of it is trial and error, and sometimes things don't always work out the way you think that they will. And you know, I'm going to point that out to you here shortly. So as you can see, I start to overlap all of my napkins. So I thought by doing that, it would just create more of like that collage effect. But as you can see, or maybe not, right there on one of the sections there where I overlap the napkins, is you start seeing like a sort of darkness come through. And now I don't know if it's because the tissue or this napkin, it's super light, or the color of it, if that has anything to do with it. I'm not really sure, but you can tell right there where all those napkins overlapped each other is where you're starting to get that darkness, and I wasn't feeling that at all. But you know, I just kept going on with it because at that point there, I thought maybe, you know, the glue might just be wet and it needed time to dry. So I just kept pushing through with this DIY here. You'll also want to make sure to cover the corners, the edges of your canvas and everything, so that everything ties in together and that you don't see any areas where it doesn't, you know, go with the rest of your design, your image. So I just laid more and more Mod Podge down. And this is what I decided to choose. But if you have a different type of decoupage glue, you know, use that. But this is what I had on hand. And sometimes I opt to use glue stick when I do like decoupaging. But I do that more for like smaller projects, like a smaller scale, not so much like this size here, because I don't know. I just think that, you know, the Mod Podge is more like you get it done faster and you get more coverage. So here I'm just sort of sizing where this little bunny butt is going to be, because you're going to want to cover enough of that canvas to where none of the like the original white shows through. So I didn't bother with covering that middle section right there because I knew it was going to be covered by that wood piece. So this is a part where I made it worse for myself, because in the design of these napkins, they have these scalloped edges and it's pink. And after looking at it, I decided, you know, I don't want those parts to show, because I wanted this to look more like seamless, like everything's sort of blending into each other. And by having those scalloped designs in the edges, it would indicate that that's like the end of a design. So it's sort of going against like my whole idea of like making this look seamless. So I continued to tear some napkins and then layer those on top of those sections where the scallop design was showing through. Now that was a big mistake and I regret that. I probably should have left it as is, because the more I did that, the more I got that darkness that I pointed out to you in the beginning, where it was apparent like that there was division. So I basically just ended up doing opposite of what I was trying to avoid, which is to avoid it looking like it was separate pieces of napkin and making it look seamless. But now I just enhance the fact that they're actually separate pieces, because I amplified it by layering those napkins on top of each other. But you know what? I had to keep going. I just started to sand off all of the excess napkin on around the edges of this canvas here, just to make everything look clean and finished, you know, making sure to remove any of the overhang using my sanding block from the Dollar Tree. I kept drying this area because I was hoping and praying that those dark areas would somehow disappear if I perhaps kept drying it, because in my head I thought maybe it's because it's still wet. But no, I really messed up on that part. But it's okay. I'm going to come up with a solution. And sometimes that's what you have to do. You might not necessarily be happy with you know, every aspect of your DIY, but sometimes you have to come up with solutions because you don't want to just throw in a towel. I mean, there's always a way to make things less noticeable or to make things a little bit better, right? So we're going to push through and I'm going to move on. I took some of this white chalk paint and just started to paint up my bunny wood cutout here. And again, this is just to create more of a brighter background for my napkins to go on. Now I'm not going to put napkins all over this wood cutout here. I'm just going to use them on the paws and the bunny tail. I wanted the rest of it to be white. I just wanted to add that decorative napkin and design to those areas, just to coordinate with the background, and also just to add more of a spring touch to it as well, because I like this napkin here. I think it's pretty. It has a nice design, subtle, and the flowers were perfect because they're nice and large, and you know, I knew that they would look really nice on this. So I added some Mod Podge to just the paws and then just proceeded to add the napkins on top of those, just making sure not to get any Mod Podge on the other surface areas that I did not want the napkin to stick to. Now you can certainly opt to tear or cut around a piece that's big enough to cover the paws, and that way you have more of an exact fit. But I decided to go in this direction here and just you know, add the Mod Podge to the paws and then just lay my napkins on top of those and then just sort of sand around the excess paper, just leaving those paws with the napkin that I glued. So that was my choice, but you can certainly do what works for you or what you think is easier for you. So any paper that might have been lifting or not completely adhered, I just continue to add more Mod Podge. So the next thing I'm doing here is just doing the same thing to the tail. Here, this time around, I just tore off a piece of that napkin and just laid that on top of the Mod Podge and then use my sanding sponge. Now it would have been better to use a smaller type of file, perhaps like a nail file would have worked better. I usually do that and have that in my craft arsenal, but I don't or didn't at this time. So I just used what I had on hand. I also have like those finger sanders that they sell on Amazon, but for some reason I can't find mine. That would have worked splendidly with this project instead of using that big old sanding sponge. But it's okay, we're moving on. I'm using the same decrepit dust and my stiff brush and just starting to dry brush that along the outer edges and around each of the paws and tail, just accentuating those areas and just adding a little bit of distressing and giving it more of an aged look. And then after that part was done, I decided, you know, it's time to start laying all of my pieces down just to see exactly what the next step is as far as embellishing this piece. Now that whole section up top with the overlapping napkins is really still bothering me. So this is where I decided I'm going to use this pretty burlap. It's a white burlap ribbon with some pearl trim that I picked up from Walmart clearance like years ago. And this was like the leftover piece that I had. I just cut a length long enough to cover the top section. It's going to cover most of that area that I dislike, although you will still be able to see some of it. I just added hot glue to the outer edges, making sure that I tuck them in towards the back and the sides of this canvas, and then added a little bit more hot glue. Next, I took some of these solar wood flowers here that I thought I was going to be adding just to further embellish. But let's move on to first hot gluing this bunny butt to this canvas so that I know exactly how and where to embellish the rest of this piece. I took this little word cutout from Dollar Tree. It's an unfinished wood piece. And then I started to still arrange all of my pieces, just still figuring out where I want these flowers. I mean, like, I like them and I like the contrast that it gives to this decor, but I was really confused, like, where should I place them? Because I was really set on trying to conceal all of those mistakes that I had and that I wasn't happy with. But ultimately, I decided that, you know what, I'm just going to add that bunny word to the center of my burlap and then add like a couple flowers to each side. Now, this is a part where my camera died and I did not know it. So it's just going to be a still shot here, and I'm going to explain what I did next. I painted the bunny word using the Dixie Belle Champagne Pink color. I hot glued that bunny word down the middle, and then I hot glued both of those solo flowers to each side. I made a simple bow using pink gingham ribbon. Hot glue that to the corners, just keeping the tails long, and the last touch was that cute little yellow button. Well, that is it for this video. I think the projects all came out super cute. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in my next one.